Okay. So, just so it's official on the recording, tonight's fan club for February is the Love It or Dump It talk. And feel free to add your own commentary, ask questions. You can either ask them to me directly or put them in the chat. But what we're going to be talking about tonight is all those projects that you have and you don't have them finished. And what happens to them. And at what point do you, um, for Valentine's Day, either love it or dump it? You either, figure out where you're at and continue working on it. Um, and maybe you just pull it out and dump it. And maybe you do something else. But I have a little poll. Um,
Excuse me. Mhm.
so my poll for tonight is how many unfinished projects do you have? 1 to 3, 4 to 7, over 10. Um, and then the second question is a number a fact or a guess? And again, zero judgment, absolutely zero judgment. Um, I'm sure if I went digging, I could probably find over 10, which is kind of embarrassing. Um, because I should be better. I'm talking about this, I should be better. But sometimes they just get kind of packed away. And yes, that is an absolute guess on my part, because I don't know the exact number. Even for tonight's class, when I was looking up different projects for an example and to talk about, um, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. I forgot about this one. So, okay, so we have about 4 to 7, most of us know it's a fact. Okay, perfect. All right. Oh, share the results. Sorry, I'm not good at polls yet. So, most of us were 4 to 7 projects, knowing that that is a fact. We have some 1 to 3 and some over 10, and some who are guessing, which is completely, again, completely fine. So, um, let me pull up my notes real quick. Okay. So when we have projects, I think, and I tell my kids this too, I think the best, the simplest question to get down to anything, knitting, crocheting, or otherwise, is the question of why. If you just ask why enough times. And I might mention knitting a lot, but this goes for knitting and crocheting alike. Anything that has to do with making, but with this group, we're obviously talking more about knitting and crocheting. And Janet and I even go through that too. When we are sitting and she's critiquing um, my some of my class posts, and she's like, you have to ask yourself why. I'm like, well, I did. And like, for example, for Tanis Gray's teaching a colorwork class March 1st. And she's like, well, why should people take her class? Because it's Tanis Gray. It's Tanis Gray's colorwork. Like why not? And she's like, well, why? I'm like, well, I just said why. And she's like, well, no, go deeper. Why? Like, why is this class so wonderful? And I'm like, well, in my opinion, Tanis Gray speaks at the perfect pace and a calm tone, is very clear. Um, and she is one of the experts in the field about teaching color work. Um, and she teaches a method of color work in this class that I've never experienced, I've never seen before. Um, and she lives on the East Coast. So it would be cost prohibitive to have her come to our store, fly her in for one class or even a weekend. So having a Zoom class would give us the opportunity to all learn from her at a more, I don't know, at a more um happy cost, at a more reachable cost. And Jan's like, there. You just have to keep on asking a question, why? And so I kind of took the question of why to my knitting a lot of times. Um, all my samples kind of scattered around me. Um, I knit this sweater, um, the Elm Grove cardigan, for a class, and this was a class a couple years ago. Um, and I do a lot of teaching online, and even when I do teach in person, I never want to use a black or a dark color because I want to show everyone the stitches. I want everyone to see exactly what I'm pointing at in the stitches, any parts of the design, how to pick up anything. So in the store, we had this white, and it's not a white, it's not a cream, it's kind of in between. So I'm like, perfect. So I snatched that up and I used that for class because it showed up well. And I was also thinking, I would love, like, who wouldn't love like a white or a cream sweater that you could wear with everything, that would go with everything. Um, so I knit the sweater for class. It worked out perfectly. Everyone was able to see everything. Everything worked out, but I never wore it. Never. Um, I would always put it on and I would think I was going to wear it, but it just never, it just, I would always take it off and put something else on. And I could never really put my finger on why. So I started asking myself, why? Does it fit well? Yes, it fits. I tried it on numerous times when I was making it. It fits. Um, is there like some sort of mistake or something on the front? No, there's no mistake. Um, but when I was looking at it and really just taking a critical eye and stepping back and looking at it, um, it was kind of, I don't know, it was just kind of, it wasn't for me. It was just kind of, it wasn't what I was hoping for. It wasn't what I was looking for. And it seemed to me, I don't know. I hate how people use the word basic because I don't think basic is bad, but it was kind of just this basic kind of sweater and it wasn't exciting to me, even though on the shoulders, on the shoulders and the back and in front, there's all this like elm grove trees, um, this lace work on the shoulders. And it just wasn't, see, it has all this pretty detail on it, and it just wasn't working. And I couldn't, so I kept on sitting with it. Um, and this is a couple years old. Um, because I was sitting with it and I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't want to pull it out because it's a sweater. Like you don't pull out sweaters. Um, but then it just really wasn't working for me. And so we had the yarn crawl, and that year, or maybe the year after, um, Janet had the Revolution mitts. And so they're mitts, and you combined a fingering weight with a mohair, and the mohair really changed the look of the yarn. Because you'd use a solid color, and we at that time we had a bunch of variegated mohair in the store. Um, and one of the samples that I knit, it was a black mitt, and it was this like rainbow color mohair, and it was just stunning, and all the colors looked stunning, and so that's when it clicked in my head. Well, maybe if I combined a mohair, maybe if I pulled up my sweater and didn't just you know pull it out and say, okay, it didn't work. Maybe if I changed it. So what I did was I went in the store and there's this lovely like blue gray mohair that we had. And I pulled out the sweater and had to pour myself a glass of wine, put on a good movie, maybe a sad movie, I don't know, whatever you need. Pulled out the sweater and restarted again, holding that white yarn with the mohair. And I will say I'm a mohair person. Um, any excuse for me to use mohair and to combine mohair with my anything I make, I will do. But this one just completely changed this sweater from I'm never gonna wear it to wow, look at this. Like this looks elevated. This looks like a sweater that no one else is gonna have. And I think maybe that was part of it too, that white sweater, just having it white. It was just like a plain white cardigan. Like you can get that in the store, you can get that anywhere. But this, and I'm using my examples. This was something different. So just because you have something that doesn't work, it doesn't mean that um you have to like unravel it, take it apart, or it doesn't mean that you have to sit and suffer with it. And not like I was suffering with it, but I just wasn't happy with it. And knitting and crocheting should make you happy, and what you make with it should make you happy. So I am so much happier with this. And it's not finished yet because I still need to wind a skein of mohair that I always forget to bring to put in my bag to bring to the store to get it wound. Because winding mohair isn't the most fun thing to do. You have to be really delicate with it. Um, yes, I did frog the whole sweater and started over. Yes. I think I was short a sleeve. Um, no, I finished the whole thing. Yes, because I was trying it on and I'm like, oh yeah, wear it here. And yeah, I never wore it. Um, and also, so talking about sweaters. So I also have a sweater that I have to frog. Um, I have to rip it out. It was a fingering weight sweater, and I just haven't been in the right mind to pull it out. Um, well, I had to find it first because it's tucked way back in the way back. Um, Fingering weight sweater had some color work around the yoke, had some color work around the cuffs. I knit it as a sample knit. Um, and to be honest, it was in the back. There was parts of it that it just in my mind it just really wasn't working, but it was green and it was this lovely yarn, and I love green. But the fit of it was just it wasn't fitting. And I always, anytime you knit a sweater, you should always be trying it on or you should be holding it up to something you've already knit to make sure that it is the same size. Um, but in the back of my head was, it'll block out. It'll block out. And it did not block out. And that too, I would try it on. It didn't fit right around my neck. I was always pulling at it, didn't fit. The wrists were too tight. Um, the person I was knitting the sample for um worked at this big yarn company, and so I'm like, oh, how fun would this be to like get in and to be a sample knitter at like a big yarn company, like how fun would that be? um and so that was in my mind. So partially I was doing it for the wrong reasons maybe, um because then when the project was supposed to be finished, I didn't hear from anybody. I'm like, hi, I'm here, I have this sweater, and they're like, oh yeah, well, that person left. um I'm like, oh, well, that's great. And then they restructured. So gone were all those dreams, but then I have this ill-fitting sweater. And when I looked up the pattern after, like, after the fact, like months after the fact, there was mistakes in there and all these things were changed. So I'm like, so okay. So that is one sweater that I just have to pull out. That is a definite dump. I love the yarn and I will do something with the yarn, but it just, I don't know, it just wasn't. I should have known better. I should have known better. I shouldn't have tried to force it. And something that doesn't fit you will not block out. They always say, "Oh yeah, it'll block out. It'll block out." It won't. Um, it really, really won't. Sometimes it might, but yes, it. Um, so again, with going through things, so this was another class that I did. This sweater vest. And again, I really liked it. I love the yarn. I love the pattern. Everything I liked it. Everything about it I loved. Um, but when I finished it, it was just it needed something. I felt it needed something extra. So what I did again with mohair, I used a darker mohair and I pulled out the ribbing, and then well, I pulled out most of it. As you can see, I did keep a couple rows of ribbing. And then I think I did, excuse me, I did one row with mohair, one row without, and then I kind of blended it out to the edge so that all my rows had mohair attached. Um, so this is something again too, where the sweater vest was just kind of plain. Um, and once I did a little something extra to it, um, I wear this a lot more often. So now my now I keep on looking, I'm like, these armholes are kind of big. So I might rip this out again and make it a little bit, I don't know, fitting better. I don't know. But sometimes our bodies change shape too, so maybe I'll just keep it. Um, but again with that, so knitting and crocheting, and I can't emphasize this enough. Knitting and crocheting are the two arts where you can easily undo and reuse our materials. Like if you're painting, you need to use new paint and new canvas. If you're sewing, if you make a dress, too small, you have to undo everything, get more material. With knitting and crocheting, you can easily pull out that work, and do something different with that yarn. Um, Now, when I was going through my projects to kind of get ready for this class, I found a couple different goodies. See what my so I don't know without saying the name. About 6 years ago, certain events were going on, and I think we were all like trying to keep different yarn stores afloat and whatnot. And so there's all these kits being sold, and um, so I bought a shawl kit. I'm like, all right, well, I have plenty of time to be knitting. It's gonna calm my mind, ease my nerves. Um, and this was a kit that online I chose. I really liked this. Is really This shows up in person a lot brighter than it's showing up on the screen right now. And then it was paired with this variegated, it's kind of like a gold and some green in there, and maybe some like off-white. But this is so vibrant and this is so kind of muted and dull that working on that shawl, I think I was halfway done with it because I'm like, I'm gonna push through. It's gonna be beautiful. And I kept on telling myself that. And it just didn't. I just looking at these two colors honestly, um, this is such a bright, vibrant color, and this color just brings it down a little bit. Um, so again, this is something where um, and I need to do some cleanup work here. We'll talk about that in a little bit, about how to get rid of these wrinkles. Um, but this is just something where I just didn't love it together. Separately, I love this one and I love this one. I just didn't love how it worked together. Um, and again, knitting should be, regardless of who picks it out, regardless of if you picked the yarn out or someone in the store picked it out or a friend, if it's not working for you, um, it there's no harm. Like, better pull it out and be happy with what you're knitting and what you're making and be able to wear it all the time than to make something that you're not necessarily happy with. That's going to be stuck in a bin or in the back of a closet or who knows somewhere. Um, and I just wanted to show you too that if sometimes if you come across those items that you're thinking, what in the world? Like, what in the world was I thinking? Um, I think it was along that same time, maybe like 6 years ago or so. And I'm gonna switch my camera over because I want to show you what I did. Let me cover it first. Um, so probably about that same time frame, about 6 years ago or so. Um, I had I'm like, all right, I said I need something bright. And again, this is bright. My camera is not doing this justice. Like think of fluorescent colors. Like this is bright, bright, bright. And so when I was going through my yarn, like what was I thinking? Why again, why? Using the why. Okay, why did I buy this? Probably because I thought this was fun. But why? So, I like pinks. I like the brightness of it. But did I have a project in mind? No. It was probably like one of those, I was telling myself, I just need a splash of color in something. So what I did is I started knitting with it and just a little, let's see what these colors are going to do. And they are bright. They're bright. Like, I don't think I could get away with that, or definitely not a sweater. Um, if I put this in a shawl, it would have to be like a really thin stripe of something, like a really thin stripe of this, I think. Um, but yeah, like now I'm looking at this, I'm like, I must have been like really down that day because this is really fluorescent bright. But what I did do is, so this is a skein of Ito yarn. I don't know where the label went on it. But this is the Ito that I think we still might have in the store, but it's like a fingering weight. And it's black and it's kind of tweedy. But when you have a color of yarn, if you find a color of yarn in your stash, or when you pull something out and you're like, well, this is a little bright, and I stepped away from my mohair, look at how different it looks. Look at how it's calmed down. So maybe you don't have to use the use a stark color like the black. Um, but it does calm the colors down. So if ever you are pulling something out because it's not the right color for you, just by adding something, and it could be lace weight, it could be mohair, it could be the same color, maybe maybe you hold two fingering weights together. Maybe if you held this with like a white, it would calm down the colors without having that stark contrast of the black and white. Um, but there are different things that you can do um, to your yarn, to your projects, to kind of calm them down a little bit if you have really bright colors like that. Um, just going through, um, and I did for a long time feel obligated to finish projects. Um, I really, really did. Um, but I don't anymore. In the beginning of the year, so in the beginning of the year, I actually pulled out several unfinished projects. Um, this was one of them. This was like the easiest one. Oh wow, this looks purple under this light, and this is like a bright fuchsia. It's crazy. Um, maybe that one. I'm playing with the lighting. Um, but this was one of the first ones I pulled out, and it was so freeing to be honest. It was so freeing to not have this sitting here thinking I have to finish it because I just wasn't enjoying it. Um, and yeah, so I started kind of going through like different things that I was pulling out. Um, and it was just absolutely freeing. So if you have, and even a sweater, um, um, it's nice to have yarn available to you that is no longer tied up in a project. Um, but if you have a project um that you want to pull out, there's different things to do. So um the easiest thing that I had to demonstrate this was um remember those sock blanks that were popular, and it was like a knitted piece of fabric that they would dye and then you'd knit from that. Um and I had one and I love this and I love the pattern that came with it. But what I didn't like about it was how when I was knitting with it, until you block it, like it's all crinkly. And it just to me it looks untidy. And I know anything that has been blocked is going to look that way. But there's this beautiful lace section in here and I love lace. But it really gets hidden and it was very difficult to see because the yarn is so crinkly. So I am using this as an example of what to do when you pull out your project and your yarn is all crinkly. So if it's, a little bit in the beginning, no big deal. I've had people suggest, I think in Marie Green's book, I think we have one or two left, playing with color or something about color. Um, it talks about what to do with your yarn stash, how to organize your yarn stash, and if you pull out um your yarn, how to get it unwrinkled. And she suggests using a hair straightener, like a flat iron, but you make sure it's new and or at least clean, clean it up so there's no hair products on it. And test a little spot to make sure that it can be used. And so you just kind of pull the yarn through and it will iron it or straighten it. Um, that makes me a little bit nervous. Um, and keeping the temperature straight, and I don't want to burn my yarn either. Or if you have a steamer, you can hold the yarn up and steam it. Um, and that will work. But again, sometimes if you have like a skein or two, multiple skeins, I find that the best thing to do, and so I have this little mini chair. So you can use a chair. You can sit with your feet up or someone else's feet if you or the other person is agile enough. Um, or what I do is I will just take a chair, even my kid's chair. This is this is from IKEA. This is a chair that you can prop your cell phone on if you want to watch videos or have a phone chat or whatever. But it's perfect for this example. So if you have skeins and skeins of yarn, or even just one skein, what you will need to do is to, I think the quickest and easiest way, if you have a full skein or more, to unwrinkle this yarn is to put it back into a hank and soak it and wet block it. So what I would do is I would take a chair or anything that you may have, and I would wrap the yarn around it. So you're just making what would be a hank. So wrap it around. Um, and then once you have it all, what I would do is I would take some sort of string. So this I found at a resale shop like Goodwill or Salvation Army. I think this is like the cotton thread that you would make doilies out of. Basically, you need a yarn or a thread, preferably a thread because um, you don't want it fuzzy at all. And what you're going to do is you're going to tie your hank just as if you would see it in the store. Um, so at least two spots, the top and the bottom. So I'm going to tie it here. And this is just to um, keep it from knotting up. So then I'm going to come to my other side, um, and tie it. So for this example, I'm just going to tie it twice. Um, but if you're worried about it knotting, you can also, tie it in thirds. It doesn't have to be measured perfectly. Um, so once you have your hank tied, you're going to take this, um, and see it's going to curl up again, and you're just going to block it. So you're going to put it in whatever it would fit, a tub, a bowl, your bathtub, whatever you have that you normally block large items in, and you're gonna put some yarn wash in there, especially if this is wool because wool has a memory. And you're just gonna let it soak like you would if you're blocking something for at least 20 minutes or so. So then the next part of it is you take it out, just like you were if you were blocking it. Um, take a towel, press it down with a towel, get as much water as you would like out of it. And then you would hang it because if it dries, it might dry scrunched up like this. But if you hang it, like put it on a clothing hanger, kind of loop it, from the top. You might want to put a towel on the bottom of it and then you want to lightly just put some weight on it. So maybe if you have like one of those like ginormous binder clips, that could be all you need because you don't want to stretch it. You don't want to stretch it and distort it. You just want all these wrinkles to get out of it. So if you just put a slight amount of weight on it and just hang it, all these wrinkles should come out and you have a new hank that you will then need to rewind into yarn that is now usable. I mean, you could use this, but as you can see that, it's wrinkly. The tension is going to be different, unless you really, pull it straight when you're knitting or crocheting with it. Um, but yeah, you want to start with a brand new hank. Um, so other things that I have found that uh, may may relate to you also is sometimes I'll find a project that I put aside for it wasn't fun. Like I was struggling working on it. Um, and sometimes all that is if you're ever knitting something and you're struggling with it, it's not fun. The needle isn't going through the yarn. Um, you're just kind of, and it's not a complicated project. Maybe it's just not working for you. Get different needles. I cannot tell you how much different needles can change a project. Um, Maybe you are knitting with um, what happened to me most recently is I just grabbed needles that I had. They were bamboo. They had more of a blunt tip, and the project I was working on had a little bit of like some yarn overs, some eyelets. So I needed more of a sharp tip to get into different places. So I was struggling with those bamboo ones because I'm like, this is just knitting. I could do it. As soon as I changed to a sharper, more, sharper needle, that was a little bit longer, such a game changer, such a huge game changer. Um, Another, I found a poncho I was working on, um, and the pattern for me just wasn't working. Um, and it was a series like and you did the main portion of this poncho um in the stitch pattern that on the pattern it looked beautiful. And I think it was the yarn I was using and the gauge that I was using, it just wasn't working. But I love ponchos. I love ponchos and I didn't want to give up on it. I love the color. I love the yarn. So what I did is I went through there's all those books, um, like Stitch dictionaries or Stitch encyclopedias, and you can get it and it just has shows like little blocks of stitch patterns. I found a stitch pattern in there that I like so much better. And now I'm working on on that poncho again. Um, and it just kind of, if again, ask the question why? Why did I stop working on this? Um, was it the needles? Okay, so that's an easy fix. If I'm struggling with something and I don't know why, and it's not the pattern, uh, it's not necessarily the yarn, you can't put your finger on it, try different needles. Um, and if it's not the needles and you're just like, this just isn't working, always remember is that that designer's pattern, you're not obligated to knit it exactly how they wrote it. That's their opinion of what they wanted. That was what they really liked. Um, and you have every right to change it to make it something that you love, that you like. Um, so feel free to do that. Yes, and yes, I have yes, Fonda, thank you so much. Yes, that thought of I've already put so much time into it. Yes. Yes. And that was that white sweater because I put so much time into it. Like I put so much time into it. I was a class, um, but I never wore it. Um, and yes, you put so much time into it, but at the end, what is going to make you so much happier? Like truly in the beginning of in January, I started going through because with the classes I teach and with the newish knit along, I have a lot of projects going on, not only for samples for that, but then for those different things that I am teaching and guiding, um, but then also playing with to see what would work for another class. So I have projects on projects, and it was just getting way out of control. And the more that I pulled out, and it wasn't in my head anymore. It was just like, all right, and I'm not going to say it was an instant thing. This cowl, for example, this is one of those where I thought I would love it. Oh, this was a pattern I forgot to look up. This is one of my favorite patterns. It's just a mindless, there's no right side, there's no wrong side. You can wear it either way. Um, I'll look up this pattern and put it in the email with this recording. Um, but I never wear it. And I don't know why. So I was gonna wear it tonight. And I think one of the reasons why I never wear this is, and I like how it drapes, and I should get over it. Um, but this bind off right here is so rigid, like it has no stretch, and that drives me nuts. Even if when I'm wearing it, it's drapey, it's not up around my neck. And it is what I wanted. Um, but yeah, you just have to keep on asking why. Why? Yes, yes, I put so much time into this. I put so much effort into this, but what is it gonna, where's it gonna end up? And there's also, you don't have to keep it. You don't have to, force yourself to wear it. It doesn't have to sit in the back of your closet. You can always give it to a friend, give it to, someone going through a tough time. There's all sorts of different charities that collect things like this. We have our scarf, if it's a scarf, we have our scarf market at the end. Um, um, uh, yeah, towards the end of the year, you can always have it for that. I get so stuck on fit, process of starting a project, making, yes. Okay, yes. Okay, let's talk about that. Getting stuck, and that's something real too. That was also my notes of when you find that project. Maybe you found a sweater that maybe is a year old, maybe over a year old. Um, and how do you figure out where you are in the pattern? Um, One of the things I was in hindsight's 2020, anytime I knowingly and willingly pack something away, I always try to write a note, start here or finished here, or at least date something. So I have an idea when I go to return, um, kind of where to pick it up. I'm also a paper person, so I'm always marking up my patterns. So even if I packed something away and brought it out, um, I can see where my marks are and can kind of guess where I am in the pattern. Um, but yes, so let's talk about everything. Um, okay, the fear of failure is real. I'm not gonna get yes. Um, so the fear of failure, and that is real. Every time I start a project, um, I worry if it's gonna work out or not. Like what if it doesn't work out? You just have to tell yourself, yes, it's time spent and you put so much time and so much energy in it, but there's lessons learned in there. Um, Recently when I was trying to so when I pick out projects for the newish knit along group, I always knit those projects 1 or 2 months ahead of time to make sure they work, to make sure I like them, to make sure they're a fun knit. Um, And there was one project where I was forcing my way. I was fighting to make it work. I tried different yarn. I was fighting with it. And finally I just stepped back and it's like, there are thousands of patterns out there. Thousands. I don't have to fight with this. If this isn't working, it's just not working. I can always find something else. Um, making a swatch, and sometimes And I'll end with any of this. If at any time anyone ever feels stuck, reach out to the store, reach out to me. You can even put something on our community Facebook page, anything. Don't feel stuck alone. We've all been there and we can all help you. And starting a project is tough. Knitting a gauge swatch, and you're going to be knitting a sweater um, based on this gauge swatch that is, this big. Um, and my biggest suggestion for that is to, when you knit a gauge swatch, do a decent size, measure it before you block it and after you block it. So you know what at least this square is going to do. So that when you're knitting your full sweater, say you're working with superwash, and superwash has a tendency to grow a little bit. So if you know that with this gauge swatch and you're knitting the sweater and you go to try it on and it's a little more snug than you thought it would be, you have to remind yourself, hey, this gauge swatch grew. And you could do math real quick, or you can ask us and we can help you out. It grew a little bit. So I know this sweater is going to grow a little bit. You can always take breaks during sweater knitting, and you can always block it midway and try it on so you know exactly, because I will guarantee you pulling out a sweater from here up, if it's a top-down sweater, like from here up, is so much less painful than taking out an entire sweater or having a sweater packed away that you never wear. Um, yeah, so then another thing that I always suggest, always tell everybody is, no matter what you're working on, how simple, how complicated, to always mark the front of your project. Always. And it could be with a locking stitch marker, could be with a safety pin. You can run some yarn through the front. And that way, if you ever go to pick it up again, maybe it's the next day, maybe it's 3 weeks later, that's one less thing you need to think about and worry about is what what side am I on? Where am I? Um, so and that kind of gets you through. And sometimes when you're stuck, just take the time to just knit one more row. What would happen if if I just sat and instead of feeling stuck, I just knit one more row? And maybe just by knitting one more row, and then maybe one day you knit 2 rows and just kind of take little bitty bites of it. Um, and maybe sometimes, you just need to um walk away from it for a little bit. I mean, there's often times where, I just kind of pack things away and okay, I just have to clear my head. Um, oh yeah, a knit night. Yes. So we have on Thursday nights here, we have virtually sit and knit with Beth. Um, and that is for, you don't have to go anywhere, but it's virtual. Um, Beth and I in person once a month have social knitting, and that is a lot of the same thing. We keep it smaller because it's in the store, and if you've ever been to the store, it's kind of, we wish it was bigger. We wish we'd have more room, but we want to keep it smaller. So everyone has it's more of a comfortable environment, so we're not all like completely squished. But we can always help you there too. So if you're local and you're stuck on something, or you just don't know where to get started, that's um a good place to go too. I'm looking at my time. I'm trying to keep on track. Um, okay, no, that was a great segue because so if you want to like rekindle the project. Oh, so, okay, one of the things I wanted to talk about real quick. And then I have kind of a fun, I think it's fun, kind of like head clearing art project. And I'm not an arty person. I really wish I was. And maybe that's why I like this so much because it gives me that feeling of being an arty person. Um, but if you want to rekindle your love with, I would say, a sweater more than a shawl, something wearable. If it has been, I don't know, 6 months to a year, maybe longer, um, you might want to consider, before you start knitting that sweater again, doing another gauge swatch and making sure that where you are knitting now is the same place you were knitting then. because sometimes a tight knitter over time, as they knit more and more and get more comfortable with knitting, you become a looser knitter, and you want to make sure that you don't have, two different size sweaters going on, a sleeve that's one size and another sleeve that's another size. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to rip out your sweater, but maybe if you are a tight knitter and you are knitting on a size 8 needle for the sweater, and it's been a year or so since you've knit on it, and you want to finish it, you want to start it again, knit a gauge swatch, because maybe your knitting has loosened up, and maybe instead of using that 8 needle, maybe you're going to use a 7 needle. So you don't need to pull anything out. You just need to change your needle size that will match what your sweater was knit at, if that makes sense to everybody. Um, because for shawls are very forgiving. Towels are very forgiving. And that when you wear them, they just kind of hang. But a sweater or something that is, very wearable, um, maybe if maybe a cowl or a hat with color work. Color work's another one of those items where um, you really want your gauge and your tension to be consistent. Just, double check that, because we all knit differently. We all knit differently, and different things happen in our lives, maybe are more tense, more relaxed. Um, so yeah, so just double check um all of that. We only go for an hour, right? I was thinking, I was talking with everybody. I'm not going to make an hour. I'm not going to make an hour. So I'm like, I'll do an art project. I could still keep on going, but I promised this art project, so I will. Um, Let me show you all. So if you're doing all this and if you feel overwhelmed at all, which I know happens, um, undoing and going through your projects, there's a lot of emotions involved. Like, you might say, oh, it's just yarn, but there are a lot of emotions involved, because, maybe it's a memory, maybe it's oh my goodness, I have a lot, which is what I go through. Um, so, sometimes maybe you just need a complete palette cleanser, something completely different. Um, there is this a wonderful lady on Instagram that I follow. Um, I don't know, I'm assuming she's other places. I don't know. Her name is Andrea Nelson. I will have a link to her Instagram in the email that's going to go out. She does amazing things with watercolor. Amazing things. And she makes it so simple. Um, for example, this was a card that she did online, that I tried my best to duplicate. So you use watercolor paints, and with your watercolor paints, you just knit. I'm starting to lose it. You just paint different squares and rectangles. And then after it dries, you go back and you draw lines and loops, and all of a sudden, this is now a um stack of presents that you can knit a card that, oh my gosh, that you can use as a card. Um, they also did one where it was tree branches and little berries. Um, she did a tree. I'm really proud of this one. She was doing color theory. So if you want to shade have a shaded tree, instead of using like a black or darker green, which is something I would have done, I started out with red. So in these darker areas, in these shaded areas, I did red, let it dry, and then painted my green over it. So then you have all these shadows. And these are really, really simple, really simple. She did um she did another one of her color theories was yellow. So you start out with purple. So you draw this lemon shape, and you start with purple on the bottom, and then you paint it with yellow, and then it turns out to be the shaded lemon. And then I also did an orange. So the orange is orange and blue. Um, but what is so amazing about her videos and her techniques, she does primarily watercolor, um, but sometimes she does little sketches. These are my Christmas cards. some leftovers. Um, it's um mostly watercolor, some colored pencil. This was just pen, um, like a string of tangled lights, Christmas lights, and just the different colors. And I think I used highlighter. But she makes it really, really simple. Um, and I was trying to figure out a way. Oh, and so she's she has her own watercolors, but like all of these, I did, no joke, with my kids leftover. I have so many leftover school supplies, and these are just the really inexpensive, cheapo watercolor paints that were left over from my kids that I was able to um paint these with. Um, the colors aren't necessarily as vibrant as hers, but I'm really proud of how they came out. Um, and I've been trying to figure out how we can do some of her techniques, because I think they're really fantastic, um, online or in a class. And the tricky thing about it is with all the watercolor, you have to let it dry. Um, and so that's the drying part that got me. But she also has this project that really calms my mind, and it calms my daughter's minds also when we've done this together. Um, so she has where you take and you make a picture in the center of your paper. And it could be something simple. So, like, again, I'm not an artist. So I am just going to do a heart, really simple. Um, this was my oldest daughter is an amazing artist, and she, of course, showed us all up. We're doing simple projects, simple shapes, and she drew this whale on hers, and she hasn't completely finished it yet. But once you draw your simple project, you take your pen, and this could be kind of the mind clearing. Yeah, it's pretty good therapy. Is you just kind of wiggle all over. You can be in any direction. You can make loops, whatever. You just draw all over. And just that is just a nice release. It's just a nice kind of kind of clearing your head. And then I'm doing this with a Sharpie. You could do it with any sort of pen. You could do it with marker. So then what you do is anywhere, and she has a couple of videos on this. So anywhere where the lines cross, you want to curve that harsh crossing. So instead of where it comes in this V, you just want to curve it out. And so this one I'm going to curve out too. And what I find myself doing is, especially in these smaller spots, and if I'm working with a thicker pen, I will just go ahead and trace and curve out these spots. And just by doing this, and just I will focus on my breathing, and it is just calming and just mind clearing. So here's like if I want to do this spot in here, I want to curve this harsh point out there, come around, I'm going to curve that one, and I just kind of trace this. So once you have, so I just want to do like one more. You just can't stop. So that in itself is something that is just very mind clearing. So then you have these spaces. And if you think that this is too thick, you can do a smaller, a finer tip pen. Um, it's art, and I truly believe that with art, the rules are there are no rules. Um, so yeah, with a smaller pen, you just get, finer detail. Um, so anyways, once you have that, you just go through and like on this one, everywhere there's a crossing, it's those harsh breaks, they're all curved out now. So one of the things that you could do is, so I did paints. We have gouache paints, and they're a fun paint, and you can either use them kind of like and acrylic paints, but then you can add water to them, and then they can be used as a watercolor paint where they can just kind of spread. Um, so I did this one and I just did random color paints just all over. Um, our library had an art fair, so they were giving away these mini canvases, and then you could do whatever you wanted with them, and then they would hang them up inside the library, which is just kind of fun. Um, but so anyway, so once you have all your curves done, um, if you are using watercolor paper, you can go ahead and use watercolor and just drop the watercolor in. I highly recommend going to her Instagram site, and she shows you all these different options of doing it. Um, if watercolor is not for you, because you do need the thicker, I would highly recommend the thicker paper, the watercolor paper, because it stands up to the water and you'll have something nice and flat. Versus if you use just regular paper and you use watercolor, it's going to get all crinkly up. Remember Zentangles? So once you have all of your corners rounded, you can just easily, so I was doing just circles, back and forth, just kind of filling in. And again, while I'm doing this, I might be thinking just a deep breath in. And I try as I'm going through this, slowing down my breathing and just kind of clearing things out of my head. Um, for the simple, so again, I drew a heart, something simple. So just to make sure that this didn't get lost in the whole grand scheme of everything, I went ahead and paint and sketch this in. You can use any type of colored pencil, any type of colored markers. I do not work for this company at all, but these Posca pencils are amazing. Like they are so creamy and nice to draw and sketch with. Um, it like I said, I use really inexpensive watercolor paints, and with anything, there's always a way to get a higher quality supply. But if you want it just, something simple, it could just be a pen and, just drawing shapes. Again, I'm not super creative, so most of my Zentangles end up being circles. Um, I could come through here and just, round these corners out. Um, if it's not smooth enough for me, then I will come and I will draw around it. And then I'll just take a pencil. Um, and so maybe I just do green in here and color this in, whatever cover. Oh, it's coming up kind of gray, but this I guarantee you is gray. Um, or for that matter, you can do, your Zentangles, you could do a line and then more. It's just that repetitive, and she talks about that too. The repetitive motion is just something that is just kind of relaxing, and then you kind of just get lost in the moment. And then you have this little piece of art afterwards. And like some of the smaller ones that I was showing you to start out with, those were, I was using those for cards. Um, and some of these, um, oh, so then this orange. Um, Another thing she does to make it a little bit fancy that I love, um, is to just kind of trace black around the outside, and it just kind of elevates things a little bit. And this one, if you get into this at all, is actually postcard. So you can do artwork. One of the things that she describes in her video is if you want to send this as a watercolor, this will send in the mail. If it gets wet, the colors will run. So there's a wax that she recommends putting over it if you want to save this as is. But yeah, you can make um little postcards to to whoever you would like. Maybe a way of reaching out to somebody. But okay. So we don't want to um trying to be respectful for everybody's time. Um, but yeah, so this was my version of love it or dump it. And don't feel, again, don't feel guilty. Don't feel obligated that you have to finish something if it's not working for you. And you don't have to make that snap decision. I have plenty of things that are just kind of sitting, um, even with my like, closed donation pile or when my daughters are, getting rid of some of their objects, whether it be a toy or a game or clothes. I'm like, you don't have to make this decision right now. We can kind of sit with it. We can sit with it. And if you at all forget about it or, change your mind, we can always, make that decision then. But yes, in reusing school supplies, I am so amazed how well these worked. Um, but yes, Andrea Nelson, I will have the link. It's really great. Just she does just such simple things, but they just bring so
Donovan
much joy.
Pierce. The heartbreaking identity of the latest victim revealed. ABCGH
Um, does anyone have any questions, anything? You have the coupon code for the bulky weight yarn. And that's always a good palette cleanser too, a bulky weight, something or other, to just kind of clear your head and to start something new. But yes, when you're looking at your items, always ask the question, why? Why? And keep on going, keep on digging, until you come up with a reason why, and then, see if it's just something that you need to change. Or maybe your why is something more substantial and you just need to start from scratch. But yeah, so hopefully this helped everybody. Hopefully this was a nice night. Enjoy the weather. It's here in the Midwest. It's really nice. Um, go out and yeah, if you're like me, always have the Olympics on. Always looking for those comeback stories. I always cheer for the underdog. Uh, yes, yes, yeah, and yes, and why, why did you stop? Why did you stop? Why? Yes. Why? It's such a tiny question, but it's so powerful. I think it's the most powerful question anywhere. Um, all right. Have a great night, everybody. I hope to see you all again.